Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so been in the house all day. Ain't really felt that good. I feel great right now, though. So I figured I'd turn on the camera and talk about the Lakers to the best of my ability in regards to the press conference that took place earlier today. I had lost track of the days. I knew that a press conference was coming up very soon, but I didn't realize it was today. But luckily enough, as I was just scanning through YouTube, I found that it had been posted less than 30 minutes to the moment when I had clicked on it. So I watched it, and if you guys follow me, you know I'm not the press conference guy. I'm not the guy that's gonna. I'm not great at taking things from pressers and then rehashing them or kind of responding to them. A lot of that stuff that I just don't retain for whatever reason. It's not my strength mentally. But what I can say is that there were some things that stood out, and I could discuss them. I like JJ Redick on television, period. Anytime I can see JJ Redick talk basketball to any capacity, I'm pleased to see it because the dude is excellent at what he does. He has to put on a different hat right now, of course, as a coach, but he's always entertaining to watch. And so that's the first thing I want to say. I noticed something that he did that I really liked, that I think that it just shows that he's ready to take control of his responsibilities. And that was when a Japanese reporter posed a question to JJ in regards to Rui Hachimura, and she directed one half of the question to Rob Pelinka. He took responsibility for the question being something that should be directed at him before Rob Pelinka could even do that. And that's not something I had seen from previous coaches. When something like that would happen, he would usually have to say, this is a coaching question, I'll defer. JJ said, nah, that's for me, I'll take that question. Like, that showed a certain assertiveness and confidence and take charge in regards to his responsibilities, and a certain subtle but established space from which to say, my job and his job is not only different, but I'm ready to make sure that whether he wants to allow me to take responsibility or not for my responsibilities, I am in control of what's going on with this basketball team as it pertains to our rosters, as it pertains to the roles, and as it pertains to what it is that we're doing. And while that's always understood, I think JJ Redick made it a certain point to make that clear. And that's the type of thing that stood out to me. I was looking at body language a lot. And, you know, JJ is good in terms of making sure that this body language reflects not only what it is that the team would prefer, but also what I think he truly believes. I don't think he's a good BSer, so to speak, when it comes to body language, and that's something I appreciate. I prefer honesty. And I think he really believed in what it is we're doing, which is something that I think in listening to Anthony Irwin, he had a different point of view in regards to what he was reading there. Body language wise, he felt that JJ Redick didn't necessarily believe in the roster like Rob Pelinka was describing. But I think the thing about basketball that I learned when listening to experts like JJ Redick and others is the way the layman like myself and maybe someone like Anthony Irwin receives the game. It's not the same way they receive the game. So when they say certain things, it may seem like it's tongue-in-cheek to us because it's obvious what our point of view is. It's not that. But when you consider what it is that they're looking at, I think that they have a more established approach to the nuances of what their profession is. And so when they say things like, I believe in this 15-man roster that we have, yeah, we might have some circumstances to which we see the data in the previous years and it not necessarily in line with this type of success that we would expect. But I do believe that he comes into this situation with an understanding that most of the players that we've had on this team have yet to establish themselves in this league. Now, if you had a team full of guys that are all in their 9th year, 8th, 9th, 10th year, then you know what's established and you understand that there's no upside or that it can't come together to make any sense. If you've had a team together for 3 and 4 years, with that being the case in regards to all those players being in their 9th and 10th year, then it's like, all right, we know we're capped off at a certain place and we can't reach a higher level. But when you look at the type of pieces that this Laker team has, and you consider that the guys that we've been relying upon have been underdeveloped for the responsibilities given the fact that Austin Reeves was a second-year player last year. Rui Hachimura didn't get him many minutes in the first course of his years in Washington, and of course having injury issues and limited minutes in the first year with the Lakers. It's like you're asking guys who need to otherwise have a certain experience level to be at a higher level last year. And with that comes a certain guise that you believe what this team is going to be, versus the professionals understanding that they know these guys, hey, this guy's in year 2, this guy's in year 3, playing year 5, year 6, year 7 roles. You're not going to see the same from those guys once they get used to those roles a bit better and those heightened responsibilities, coupled with injury issues that have cost certain key players time away from the team. It puts you in a position to understand that if you are reinserting a Gabe Vincent and a healthy Vanderbilt, then it can provide a delta dynamic that ultimately gives you an opportunity to feel confident that what it is that they bring can be good ingredients to what it is that the other players put together bring to the table. Now, do we believe that we can win a championship? No, nobody's coming out here telling you we're going to win the West or nothing like that. But what we are saying is, we were asking these young guys last year and some of these unestablished guys in the previous years to play roles that are otherwise reserved for players who are more established in the league. And at this point, these guys are starting to round into that space where they would otherwise be expected to take on the roles that we had given them in situations when they were not ready. They should be more so ready now, or at least approaching ready as we continue to go forward. And then you still have underdeveloped players, underproven players that may have an opportunity to prove themselves to be better than you think, or ultimately more so equipped for the roles that otherwise maybe shouldn't be asked of them, like Max Christie having not gotten many minutes over the last 2 years, Dalton Connect, who's coming in as a rookie, Jalen Hood-Schifino, who didn't get to play damn near at all last year with the Lakers. So you're going to ask them to play heightened roles, and maybe they break out with those minutes. Maybe they're able to establish themselves with a certain level of strength that would blow our minds. So that's really what I think is possible when you have so many unestablished, underdeveloped players on your team who may have underachieved last year when they were asked to do too much too soon. So I think that's what they had in mind, and I bought what they were saying because that's how I perceived the team itself. Did it have some holes in it? Yes. I think, and we've talked about that at length. Backup point guard, we can be established a bit better at that position. Obviously, with the big man position, we are relying upon some guys who may not be overly talented or as proven as necessary in order for us to feel confident that we have the proper backups for that position. So yeah, there's some holes in this roster. We shouldn't be overly excited about competing in a tough Western Conference, but as a team and its own personal goals as it pertains to improving as a unit, you have guys who are now getting experience or had experience last year that was much needed in order for them to be ready for what it is they're going to be doing. So that's something to look forward to. And then the continuity of having the team not made any trades was something that Rob Pelinka talked about that I don't think many people bought that I actually did. Because at the end of the day, if you don't make a lot of moves, then you have the same team running with one another. And that type of continuity can make for a better product in the sport of basketball and others as well. Same dudes coming back. Yeah, you may not be enthused about the idea of not making changes, but sometimes changes can mean for more errors because guys aren't used to playing with one another. In this type of situation, you got guys that are used to playing with one another because they've been together for several years, because they've been through wars with one another, because they made the playoffs a couple of years in a row, and that is ultimately what we're talking about here. This is a team that has not failed as badly as our frustration displayed would describe, if I've said that correctly. They weren't nearly as bad as we acted because they made the playoffs over the last 2 years. They went to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Some of these same role players, Rui, Austin, D'Lo, they were in a winning situation just 2 years ago. They did make the playoffs in a tough Western Conference last year, and they were asked to do too much from player to player to player, given the fact that Darvin Ham was running things the way that he did, and it did not yield us much success. He was running with his head cut off. It seemed like a chicken with his head cut off, not necessarily knowing how to utilize the roster. There were things that worked against those guys that were outside of their control. Some of the key role players that we have on this team have been proven to be perennial playoff performers at this point. Whether you like what you saw in the playoffs or not is not what I'm trying to describe, but more so that they get there. And of course, a lot of that has to be given to the core of Bron and AD, who you would expect to compete for championships if the team around them were established and the coaching was stellar. So I think there's reasonable optimism to apply to this unit, just like the guys at the press conference said. It's not all smoke that they're blowing at you. I do believe they had to show a certain level of confidence that maybe they would rather have made some trades to improve upon that authenticity of that confidence, because they couldn't do certain things because of the nature of the market and the nature of the collective bargaining agreement, which makes it very difficult for this team to ultimately maneuver. Makes it difficult for any team to ultimately responsibly maneuver through the trade market. So maybe there was nothing available to us, nothing good enough that would otherwise allow us to mortgage any picks. That's something I had established in my mind before the playoffs even ended. So throughout the course of the summer, I wasn't expecting them to do anything. If anything, I was worried that they would, overpaying for something they had no business doing, only to find themselves still not quite at a championship goal. So for me, it's like, look, there's one thing that Anthony Irwin said that I just really appreciate and I agree with. If you're not ready to mortgage any picks, maybe you aren't best for LeBron and AD because they need to win now. And that conservative approach caps off the potential of what it is they can do. I definitely agree with that. But if you have management wanting to go in a more conservative direction, or ownership rather wanting to go in a conservative direction while holding on to AD and Bron, then you got to maneuver within those parameters. You can't, within your position as the GM, just mortgage all of the future when Genie's clearly telling you, my primary concern is the future of this franchise and how I don't want to be so damn bad after Bron and AD leaves. I want to be able to have some flexibility with the picks unless something comes by that blows our top off. And because that is understood, you don't even have to verbalize that. Everybody who's watching the Lakers can see that that's the circumstance. Nobody was willing to give you anything that would otherwise blow your socks off for your picks. So as a Laker fan who understands the value of his picks, knowing that his core is older at this point, I don't support us doing certain things to otherwise mortgage picks just to make this team that much better so that we can give ourselves a puncher's chance. Because you're going to want a puncher's chance in a few years, and you ain't going to have one because you would have otherwise given away any of the young talent that would be infused into your team through the draft, which is ultimately what you need when you got old guys who are about to retire at any moment, and a core full of role players who could be continuing to supersede that core's tenure on your roster. Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, we signed them on for multiple years. We didn't give them 1-year deals. So the idea that we would just be willing to move on from them just because we didn't reach heightened expectations that honestly I don't even think were realistic for our team last year negates the idea that we've committed to these guys for multiple years and vice versa have committed to our organization. So when you consider, okay, let's just move this guy, and this guy, it's like, well, we just committed to these people. And while there may be a norm within the league to do that, it may not necessarily be what is best in regards to having it so that people want to commit to you going forward if all you're going to do is sign them the contracts and immediately move them out, especially when your destination is the Laker market and everybody wants to be here to begin with. Everybody that chooses the Lakers, you send them somewhere they don't want to be, it just doesn't set the right precedent for free agents in the future. So these are things that you got to have in your mind as a GM. And if you're being told not to move your picks for nothing less than Donovan Mitchell-like talent, and that's not on the table for you, all the people offering you is Cam Johnson and Jeremy Grant at overpriced trade packages, there's no movement to be made that's going to make your ownership happy. And so that's really the situation Rob Pelinka's in. I understand that. The optimism that he has to lean into is otherwise continuity from not making many moves, and that I have a belief in the players that I've signed for multi-years, for which this is the middle of those contracts, most of them. Look at a guy like Gabe Vincent. He gave Gabe Vincent a 3-year deal. You going to trade him away in year 2? He gave Rui Hachimura a 4-year deal. You going to trade him away in year 2? Like, these are things that we did last year with the intention of keeping the team together, so why would we blow it up just because it didn't reach a heightened space of expectations for which were not realistic any damn way? I just don't think the Laker fans are seeing this thing the right way, and or the talking heads aren't describing it to Laker fans the right way. So as a result, we end up having a certain unnecessary and uninformed skepticism about what it is that Rob Pelinka can do, what it is he should do, and ultimately what it looks like when we do things that otherwise you want done. I'm not like that. I'm much more versed in the understanding that of the confines of what it is that we're dealing with, and ultimately, with all due respect, the greed in place that otherwise wants us to have our cake with Bron and AD and eat it too in regards to not mortgaging everything. So that's really what it comes down to. It's an understanding that, yeah, it may on its surface seem like we should be able to make moves and that we should be unhappy that moves weren't made, but the reality is it were never very responsible for you to make those moves in the first place. What was most responsible is probably to move on for Bron and AD, and that was never an option. So what are you going to do? You're going to live in that space and do the best you can within it, and this is what it looks like. Leaning into the optimism of continuity and accepting the fact that the team is capped off under a championship. It's just what comes with this. It's either that or we start the process of an uncertain and very long rebuild that could potentially look worse than the ceiling of what it is we have right now. And given the fact that we went through that with the Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Kuzma era, I don't think anybody's in a hurry to get back there, since we're going to inevitably get there anyway, with LeBron James only having a few more years left to play in theory. So these are the type of things. It's like, yo, if you understand the full nature of the Lakers situation, what you're not going to do is ask them to give away all of their future picks when these guys are about to retire. You're not going to do that unless you're getting back something that can otherwise be flipped for more picks, which nobody's going to give you. So let's just understand the circumstance and not ask too much of our team. Certainly not ask them to do things that ultimately we're going to be unhappy with any damn way. That's what I got to say to Laker Nation. And in regards to the press conference, that's really what it comes down to. I thought they were respectful of what they were in control of. They don't own the team. They work for Jeannie, and Jeannie has certain things that she wants done. She wants Bron and AD on this team. She also wants to make sure we have a future. Those two things don't necessarily work together, but we're going to make it work one way or another. And so that's really what it is, man. That's it. Live with it. And so, now the decisions we have to make have to be responsible within those parameters. And I think that we are in that space where we got to play players' value up in order to give us more flexibility in a confined trade market. If you're going to be able to make a decent trade, these guys got to look better than they looked when they were playing under Darvin Ham. That's the bottom line. So while people want trades to be made, trading them at this price is not the best way to play. You want to get those guys on the floor. You want to get them ramping up, rolling, looking good, and then you can strike a deal when the value of these guys is up in the air. That way you can get the most for your buck. Until then, asking them to make a trade right now betrays that and ultimately brings you back half of what these guys could potentially be worth. Now, a lot of things can teeter in different directions, including them not pulling the trigger on a move when a guy gets better. When a guy's value goes up, maybe they don't pull the trigger. That can be something that might frustrate some people. But at the end of the day, if the point is to win, then either way you should be pleased. If you can get these guys' value up and they stay and they're winning, that's good. If you can get their value up and move them for something better and you're winning, that's good. But you just want to win at the end of the day. Let's not lose sight of that. It's not about making moves. It's about winning. And if winning can help best make moves, cool. If it can make it worse, then you don't want to do that. So that's really what my point of view is, man. As far as the different pointers of what was said during the press conference, I was only half paying attention, man. But the stuff that stood out to me was basically what I knew I would see in response to people saying is bullcrap, which I ultimately believe is not really all that bullcrap. We have continuity that can work in the favor when you got young players that are trying to establish themselves in heightened roles, surrounded by superstars that take time to get used to playing with to begin with. You can find yourself bringing in a guy who you think is going to be fantastic, only to find out he cripples and crumbles under the bright lights, and you would have did better to hold on to what you had, who was used to being here under these circumstances. We've already learned that lesson with Russell Westbrook, and we knew damn well we should have held on to KCP and Kyle Kuzma. They were used to playing in LA, and they were only going to continue to play well. So as they continue to increase in time and experience. So that's what we understand about what we have. Sometimes the grass is not greener on the other side. Sometimes it's best to keep what you got. You know what I mean? And in this situation, by all accounts of what I see, it is our best option based on what it is we're limited in regards to. So that's really my point of view, man. I was pleased with what I paid attention to. I think we're ready to get rolling, man. JJ Redick has me feeling like he's going to do good things with the roster. We've already established. I don't know if I talked about this or not, but they did tell us who our starting lineup was going to be. He said it was going to be who he saw on the floor, or who we know we used a lot last year, the most rather. AD, Bron, Austin, D'Lo, and Rui at the 3, which is interesting to me because I know a lot of people didn't believe Rui could play the 3 very well. I personally thought Rui at the 3 was the way to go when we initially got Rui Hachimura. I do have my concerns about whether or not that has proven to be the best move for Rui. I think he's been good at the 4. He's proven to be a nice weak side help defender at the 4 spot. And since we have so many issues defensively with our backcourt with with Austin and D'Lo, maybe you would probably fare better if you have someone else next to those guys playing that position. With Rui coming off the bench, which is something I can argue. But at the end of the day, if you just put your best 5 players on the floor, this is what you're going to come up with. And you just have to try to work around the deficiencies of that roster, or that lineup, rather. But I do think that Coach Redick will probably switch that up as the season progresses if it doesn't work out. We learned that D'Lo and Austin don't look that great next to one another. That's what we learned. So I think he'll probably end up having to pull one of them off the bench and probably throw in a Max Christie, or a Vanderbilt comes back healthy, and probably throw in Vanderbilt. And I would also not rule out Dalton Knecht earning the starting minutes as well, depending on how good he is out the gate. His talent is going to probably rise above some guys, to be honest with you. I just see that coming on the offensive end. So it's going to be some changes throughout the course of the season, or maybe not. Maybe he just settles into this being what it is all year and by the continuity process. But I do believe that there are some deficiencies in that starting lineup that I'm pretty sure he probably has a notion about already, given the fact that I know he's a hell of a study. But he also probably has some ideas about how to utilize those guys better than Darvin did, as to which he may be able to get more success out of it anyway. But defensively, certain things are standard. Rui doesn't move very well laterally, and Austin and D'Lo are cones together. So you're going to have to figure that out. And Bron is probably not going to want to play too much defense as he continues to go age in this league. So your defense is going to suffer one way or another, no matter how good your offense is with that lineup, in my opinion. But I think the bottom line is you do have better paced options, if that makes any sense, better plug-in options this year for those problems than you did last year. So that's encouraging. So that's really my take. I don't have a problem with the starting lineup. I just understand that after watching it for as long as we have, the ceiling is capped off defensively in a real way. But offensively, I think that could be one of our best lineups. I really do. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited about the start of the season because a Laker fan is always going to be excited about just about any season. There was only a few seasons where I wasn't excited about basketball before the season started. I'm not going to lie, man. These last 2 years have not been very fun for me, even though we have made the playoffs. You guys have seen me cover every single game. And while I enjoy doing what I do here, there were some real rough nights watching Laker basketball, as we all shared, man. I think a lot of that had to do with Darvin Ham. I do think some of that also had to do with the personnel itself. And we are bringing back a lot of that personnel. So I'm a little not cringe. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm a little concerned that it's not always going to be very fun watching Laker basketball this year for that reason, man. I don't know. It's almost like you cringe. I think that is the right way to put it, where you almost like, is this going to suck? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at as it pertains to the watchability of the roster. These last 2 years just have not been fun. But it's not always about having fun, if that makes any sense. It's also about being successful. And if we win games, it ain't bad. You know what I mean? That's what it really comes down to. If you find a way to squeeze out wins, style of play for myself is secondary to that. So I'm looking forward to JJ Redick's imagination in regards to this team. I'm Looking forward to his after game press conferences because he's going to be very entertaining and very poignant. And I'm looking forward to see what his style of play is as a coach. His style of coaching is going to be. He gave us a nice story in the press conference about how, he was just basically told that he's a maniac as it pertains to studying the game, and his coaching way is a bit maniacal, I guess is the word would be. But what he said was he put together a coaching staff that thinks the way he does and is as crazy about the game as he is. And, that's something that I think is important as well when you consider this is a basketball mind. With all due respect to any coaches that came before him, I really do have a great deal of respect for him talking basketball, just in general, more so than some of the guys we've had. And so I think if you put a bunch of people around him who are as scientific about the sport that he is, it's going to pay dividends on the roster so long as they buy in. He spoke of Max Christie buying in, and I think that trickles down to other players as well. And so hopefully training camp is going well. I haven't seen a lot of footage from training camp, a little less than usual. I don't know if that's just because we're still getting started with it, or maybe I'm just not looking in the right places. But I haven't seen as much footage as maybe we usually do. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but I look forward to seeing more from training camp, hearing more from training camp, getting more practice footage to our eyesight, and just kind of seeing where the team is right now. He did mention something about Bronny James, and he was asked about the challenges of coaching Bronny James and LeBron James. He said he didn't see any challenges there. It's just like any other relationship on the court. It's going to require communication, and so I think a lot of that is touch and go. I think at this point you're asking him to foresee what's coming rather than to really tell the truth about what it is. He doesn't know yet. We have to go through it in order to know. I think this is extremely he don't know yet. To ask him what his coaching style is going to be, he don't know yet. To ask him what it's like to coaching a team, he doesn't know yet. And I think that's a bit of context to definitely understand as we ask him questions about what it is he's going to do. He doesn't know yet. But he is preparing to the best of his ability. And given what he's displayed as a basketball mind, I think it's going to be fun to watch him grow as a coach, so long as he does well in the personality factors in regards to dealing with different personalities. It's not just X's and O's. It's also about managing men. And so that's going to be something that he's going to need help with from the rest of the coaching staff. And we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how it plays out. So, for me, I was just thinking about this about an hour ago, I want to see J.J. Redick become the best coach he can be. I think it's most important that he makes it through the first 2 years. If we have lowered expectations, I think he'll be fine. But if the expectations are in the sky that we win a championship and he doesn't deliver on that, then it could potentially have him ousted as a Laker coach within a couple of years. I want to see first that I like him as a coach. And if I do like him as a coach, my hope is that he's able to get through some years that may not be so good so he can grow within the organization. I've always liked the idea of having not a rookie, but a homegrown coach and homegrown players that can grow the culture from within. We've had too many coaching turnover issues over the last 20 years, man, or more. And I would like to see a guy stick around for 7, 8, 9 years, you know what I'm saying? But be deserving of it. And sometimes we can get so zoomed in on immediate failure, 5-game losing streaks, 7-game losing streaks at a random year, that you just want to fire a guy off the strength of that. If he can make it through those type of circumstances, not assuming it gets that bad, but if it does, if he can make it without getting fired, he's the type of basketball mind that I would like to see stick around the organization and grow as a coach over the next several years. I wouldn't be surprised with what it is he's shown me if he's coach of the year within 6 years. You know what I mean? Wouldn't shock me at all. But he's going to have to be able to survive, so to speak, the Bron and AD era. And so I personally want to see him hang on to his job if everything goes well, all things equal, and have a young team from which to coach after the Bron AD era that can kind of take what it is that he's about to learn over the next 2 years with Bron and AD and run with it, and then see what he can do with a team that's not having such heightened expectations. as in being around for the rebuild, which I think could be inevitable. Although, when you talk about the Lakers, we could potentially bring in another superstar right out the gate. But whatever the case may be, I do want to see JJ make it through this era without being fired, so long as he doesn't make me hate him like Darvin did. So that's really what it is. We don't know yet. But JJ's definitely a likable character and an intelligent basketball mind. So I think we're going to enjoy having him in LA so long as everything remains equal. So that's really my Laker video, man. I got my food here. It's been getting cold, I'm sure, but I wanted to make this video because I know we had that big press conference today. Although it was only 30 minutes, surprisingly, it wasn't very long. But I thought it was enjoyable for the most part, and I think that people should be with lower expectations, but don't just automatically assume that they're bull crapping you around and that they don't believe at all in this team and that there's no reason to have any optimism about us having a solid regular season and maybe make the playoffs. I think that is overstated. I really do. I think that they were a bit more sincere than they're probably going to be given credit for. I think that. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDO44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.